TyTy Washington came out of high school as the 15th ranked prospect nationally and the 3rd ranked point guard per Rivals.com. Washington initially committed to Creighton in November of 2020 before rescinding his commitment in early 2021. In May of 2021, Washington committed to play for the Kentucky Wildcats, and this time he made good on that commitment. Washington has had some big games this season for the Wildcats, including a game in which he broke John Wall's school assist record, recording 17 assists in a win against Georgia. Recently, Washington has been battling a lingering leg injury that has limited his minutes and production. If this leg injury were to persist, it could hurt his draft stock, but reports seem to indicate that he just needs to rest up to get back to full health. And if this is the case, Washington will likely be a top 10 pick in the 2022 NBA draft. TyTy Washington's first strength is his touch on floaters and short jump shots. Floaters are kind of a weird shot in that it seems like even some players with the best shooting touch have trouble mastering them. But those that can master the shot, especially guards, can cause headaches for opposing defenses. It just changes the way the defense needs to guard a player once they get into the lane, because if you drop back just a bit to stop the drive to the rim, they can just toss it up and over you. Washington loves getting to his floater, and that's okay because he has good touch on them. But in addition to his floater, he also has some short to mid-range jumpers he can sprinkle in. Washington has good body control on his drives. This means he can stop suddenly to get a defender off balance, then rise up and hit a short jump shot. The mid-range is a much maligned area in recent NBA history, but Washington looks comfortable working in the short to mid-range area and has also shown the potential to be efficient living in that area. Another strength for Washington is playmaking. As mentioned earlier, Washington made headlines in this department by breaking John Wall's school assist record in a game that regular point guard Severe Wheeler missed with an injury. Washington isn't on the ball all the time at Kentucky, most likely because Wheeler is a non-shooter, so Kentucky likely sees it as beneficial to have Washington at the 2 spacing the floor a little. But despite this, Washington has shown some high-level playmaking ability. Washington is really good playmaking out of the pick and roll. He's good at changing speeds, getting defenders on his hip, and also recognizing when his rollman has an opportunity to score. Washington also likes to get out in transition using his speed and kick passes out to open shooters beyond the arc. I think Washington might be a bit miscast in his current role at Kentucky. If he were given the keys to run the offense full time, I could see his assist numbers being considerably higher. One final strength for Washington is his pure speed. Washington is the type of player that defenses will want to keep in the half court as much as possible. This is because when Washington can get out in transition, he is a blur. With or without the ball in his hands, Washington can simply outrun everyone in transition situations. This creates problems for transition defenses because defenders can't catch up to him, so other defenders need to slide over to stop the drive. This leaves Washington's teammates open for good looks at the basket or from beyond the arc. Raw speed is something that can't really be taught, and Washington possesses it. NBA teams will need to be ready to handle his speed when he shows up next season. One weakness for Washington is getting to the rim. As mentioned earlier, Washington loves to get to his floater or pull up in the short mid-range for shots. While he is good at it, he does seem to settle at times rather than trying to get all the way to the basket for an easier look and/or a shot at free throws. The root of the issue here seems to be that Washington avoids contact at all costs. He's currently averaging just 1.5 free throw attempts per game and had a stretch of 6 straight games earlier this season where he didn't attempt a single free throw. While Washington can be a good player without getting to the basket or drawing fouls, if he wants to reach his true ceiling as a scorer, he'll have to learn how to get all the way to the basket more consistently. Another weakness for Washington is as a defender. This issue doesn't seem to be a problem of effort or falling asleep off the ball. This goes back to his avoidance of contact. Washington is not very good at dealing with screens as a defender. He either gets completely crushed on a screen and taken out of the play, or gets caught leaning because he's anticipating contact from a screen. At the very least, if Washington gets hit with the screen, he should try to use his speed to get back into the play, but it doesn't seem like he always takes advantage of this ability. Washington will need to improve his ability to deal with screens as a defender. If he doesn't, it just puts too much pressure on the rest of the defense to make a play. This first clip shows off Washington's mastery of the floater. The play starts with the ball getting swung out to Washington on the wing. He then attacks before the nearest defender can slide over and get in front of him. As he gets into the paint, the big man slides over to contest the shot at the basket. Washington floats it higher than anyone can reach and drops it through for 2 points. While Washington will want to improve his ability to get all the way to the basket, having this shot in his arsenal will be a helpful starting point for him at the NBA level. This next clip displays some of Washington's playmaking ability. The play starts with Washington bringing the ball up and getting into a pick and roll set. Washington gets a good screen and the rollman's defender is forced to hang with Washington while his defender gets back into the play. Washington recognizes that he has the attention of two defenders, slows down to hold the big man defender in place, and tosses up an alley-oop. Washington has great awareness as a playmaker and understands how to manipulate defenses. He has a lot of potential as a playmaking NBA guard. This final clip gives us an example of how Washington can struggle as a defender in the pick and roll. The play begins with Washington defending out near half court. Western Kentucky begins a high pick and roll set. Washington comes out a bit too far to avoid the screen and leaves his big man on an island with the guard. In this situation, Washington should either hustle to get back into the play and allow his teammate to get back to the roll man, or he should at least slide over and cover the roll man. Instead, he sort of just floats out into open space. The play ends in an offensive rebound and a foul for Kentucky. Washington has some good potential as a defender, he'll just need to clean up some of his defending in the pick and roll. As things stand currently, TyTy Washington will likely be the first true point guard taken in the 2022 NBA draft. While he already has a ton of ability as a playmaker, I could see the scoring aspect of his game starting slowly at the NBA level. Washington doesn't get many easy buckets at the rim or at the free throw line, and he's just an average three-point shooter. I think his ideal offensive situation is one where he could step into a point guard role where he isn't expected to carry the scoring load right away. On the defensive side, Washington has a ton of potential with his speed and massive 6'9" wingspan. He just needs to clean up how he handles pick and rolls to reach his ceiling. I don't see Washington as a star-type player unless his scoring really takes off, but he could have a great career as a regular starter or a second point guard off the bench. My NBA comp for TyTy Washington is Darius Garland. Garland is a better shooter than Washington, but both are great playmakers that rely more on finesse to score around the basket.